my name is Heidi and I own the store TPT, The Lesson Pony. Today I'd like to talk to you about things you need to do before you bring a pet into your classroom. The first thing is, and the most important thing, is to make sure that you get permission from your principal. In today's world, where principals, administrators, department heads keep changing all the time, I would really recommend that you have all three sign off for you. I would send them an email showing them the contract that you're going to be sending home to the parents regarding the students and them using the pets. The reason being is you don't want to bring a pet into your classroom and then halfway through the school year the principal leaves and the new principal comes in and decides it's not the world's greatest idea to have a pet in the classroom. When you set up the tanks, what I recommend you do is put them in the back of the classroom. There's several reasons for this. The first is it's fair to the animals. It gives them a little bit of peace. It also helps the students to focus on your lesson. If you have animals in front of the classroom, for some of the special ed students, they may have trouble focusing on the lesson if they have an animal in front of the class. Also, it's rather difficult for class management if you have two animals that all of a sudden decide to get romantic, or if you have an animal that needs to go poop in the middle of your lesson. So just save everybody some aggravation and have the animals placed in the back of the classroom. On the tanks, what I recommend you do is put an index card. Put down the English measurements and the metric units. That way when the students do go and look at the animals, even though it may not be perfect, they're still getting reinforcement on the difference between metric and the English measurements. Now, another thing to think about today in this age of COVID is two factors. Number one, you have to be very careful today. I heard a report last night that in Hong Kong, they're taking all the hamsters and small mammals such as that and they're destroying them. It was on CNN. I don't know if it was true or not, but I'm just reporting. According to the latest scientific evidence, it is believed that COVID came from bats in China. Therefore, you want to do the best you can not to have students get COVID, which goes without saying, but it's something to be aware of. I recommend that before you bring any small mammals into the class, that you have plastic gloves on, just to cut down on any problems. Plastic gloves are also good if you're feeding reptiles, snakes especially. That way they will not equate human hands with food. Another thing to think about when you're dealing about COVID is what happens if you get sick with COVID or get exposed and you have to be out for 2 weeks. You need to have another teacher there that will take care or be responsible for the animals if you're out all of a sudden for a couple of weeks. When I was teaching a year and a half ago, the other science teacher has a big anaconda snake. I do not like snakes. I cannot stand snakes. This is why we're filming this outside here. I'm down in Florida, at Fort Lauderdale. So cold today that the iguanas are falling out of trees. I do not like reptiles. Mr. Wells' snake got loose. It had a thin wire top on it and it got loose. Steve was not in school that day and the snake started to come along the hallway. The principal called me and asked me to go round up the snake. I told him, I don't like reptiles. If it was Jon Snow's wolf from Game of Thrones, I'd be all there. I do not like reptiles. Again, it's so cold down here today that the iguanas are falling out of trees. I have a real problem with having a lizard fall on my head. Now I understand why people down south have umbrellas. I'm going to buy an umbrella today, I think, because I do not want an iguana to fall on my head. So getting back to the story. The snake was going down the hallway and the principal called me. to get the snake. I told him, I'm not going near the snake. It ended up they had to get the animal control person. So think about that. If your animals do escape, who is going to be the person responsible? If you do decide to get a snake, what I seriously recommend you do is get one of those snake tools and a bag or something, make it easier for someone to catch a snake. Snakes are notorious escape artists. My dear friend had put a very nice top on it, but the snake had gotten large, and it was, I guess, a really nice snake, but was able to come up over the covering and come out. Another thing to think about is what happens if you get a hamster or something and it dies. What I recommend you do is if you get a hamster or any type of small mammal like that, I would get a very common one. Don't go out and buy the unicorn hamster. Buy a very common one. That way if something happens to the hamster, you're able to go to the local pet store and replace it if you do decide to do this. So these are just a few tips to think about. Also, the food. Who's going to pay for the food? What I try to do, and if you look at some of my other videos, I try very hard to do labs all the time, but I try to keep my costs down as low as I can. That way I have surplus funds to pay for things that I normally can't do. You could ask students if they can bring food home bring food from school home. You can ask the cafeteria ladies to bring food home, bring food from the cafeteria. So there's certain things that you can do to cut down on the cost, but you have to figure that in. Also, if something happens and school closes for a long period of time, are you set up at home to bring the animals home? Again, these are just a few things. The most important thing is make sure you get permission from your superiors. I'd recommend to contact the principal, the assistant principal, the superintendent. Make sure you have a teacher on the property that will help you if you go out for any reason. I recommend plastic gloves, especially when you're feeding any type of reptile, so they will not equate human smell with food. And make sure that you're set up in case you need to take the pets home. Next week I'm going to be posting a video on the most common pets and the ones that are the most friendly for the classroom. Thank you. Please subscribe and leave any comments below. Stay safe. And if you can think of any other precautions prior to bringing a pet to school, please let me know. Also, soap. Make sure you have soap for the students to wash their hands before and after patting. Thank you.